Hi there. So today we are going to learn how to sketch graph for a piecewise function. Now let's take a look at the question. Given function f is defined by this piecewise function, which is being divided into two types of function. The first one is linear because x is power 1. The second one is quadratic because x is power 2. They are being divided right at x equal to 0, where, as you can see, on the right of 0, the function is 2x, and on the left of 0, the function is x squared. Look at the first question. A. Find f2 and f negative 2. So how should we find the values of f2? This simply means that we just substitute x with 2. But now we have two functions. Which one should we use to substitute these two? Well, let's take a look. 2 is greater than 0. So which one is greater than 0? This is the function less than 0. So we don't want that function. We want the function which is greater than 0 because 2 is greater than 0. So the function that we have to look at is this function which is 2x. So just substitute f2 into the function 2x. And now we just have to replace that value x with 2. And the answer is 4. For the next question, which is f negative 2, try to guess. Which function should we look at? Is it the linear function or the quadratic function? Now, take a look at the number. X is equal to negative 2. Is it greater than 0 or less than 0? Well, negative 2 is less than 0. As you can see, x less than and equal to 0 is this function x squared. To find the value of f negative 2, we just have to replace negative 2 into the function x squared. So negative 2 squared is just 4. The next question is sketching the graph of fx. But now we have two types of functions. But don't worry, we just need to sketch. Okay, so let's take a look at this one by one. The first function is the function 2x. This is linear. Remember the steps to sketch a linear function. Let me label it as y. So, to sketch a linear function, we just need 2 points. What is the first point that we should look at? Of course, we should look at the x and y intercept, okay? But now, the value of x, the domain is given, which is x greater than 0. So we just have to substitute in the value at that domain given, which is 0. When we substitute x equal to 0 there, we get that 2 times 0 is actually equal to 0. So the first point that we get to sketch this linear graph is 0, 0. The next point we should be looking at is y equal to 0. But when y is equal to 0, as you can see here, the x will also equal to 0. So it's just the same point. And it's redundant. So it's quite hard for us to picture how does the graph looks like when there's only one point. To sketch a linear function, we need to have at least 2 different points. If this type of problem comes in, what you have to do is just to choose any other x. And since the domain is given, you can choose x which is greater than 0. So just choose any number greater than 0. For example, you can choose 1. So just replacing the x with 1, and you see that the point is 2 for y. The coordinate is 1, 2. Now, once we have 2 different points, 0, 0 and 1, 2, we can simply sketch the graph of this linear. Okay, so label your axes, x and y, plot your points. The first point is 0, 0, it's here, okay? and then 1, 2. 1, 2 is, this is 0, 1, 2 is somewhere here, 1 and 2, for example. Okay, so once we have these 2 points, you can just simply draw a long line, okay, which connects these 2 points. But please do be careful. The line does not stop here. It must go further than that, because the function here says that the domain is x greater than 0, which means that it starts from 0 and goes greater beyond that until infinity. That's why we have to draw a longer line, okay? Now, next, what we have to do is, please check your domain carefully. This is x greater than 0, which means that exactly at 0, there's no equal sign. So this means the dots that we have drawn here just now is wrong, because I have drawn a dense circle here, or what we call as the black dot. So what should be here is simply the empty circle. So it should be an empty circle right at the value 0 here for the function 2x. Now, let's look at the next function, which is the quadratic function. Let me label it as y equal to x squared. So this is just a quadratic function. To draw a quadratic function, you have to remember the steps. Step 1 is looking at the value of a. The a of this x squared is 1. 1 is greater than 0, so that means the graph is going to look like a smiley shaped graph. The second step is to find the minimum point. You have to remember the formula negative b over 2a. And what's the b in this case? Well, there is no b because it's plus 0x. So when it's 0, 0 divided with everything is just 0. Next step is to find your value of y coordinate. Just substitute this value 0 into x squared. And you see that 0 squared is just 0. This means that you have found your minimum point, which is at 0, 0. Okay, now we can straight away sketch the graph. At 0, 0 is the minimum point, and we can sketch that smiley shaped graph. But hold on, does the graph look like this, or is it just half of the graph? Now let's check the domain. The domain given is x less than and equal to 0. So this means that the graph only exists to the left of 0. This is the left of 0. So what happens to the graph on the right side of 0? Well, we have to delete that graph. Because on the right side of 0, the only graph exists is just this linear function. Okay, what about the dot exactly at 0 for this quadratic graph? Should it be a dense circle, black dot, or a white circle, white dot? So we should draw a dense circle here. Why? Because we see that there's an equal sign. So right at 0, for this quadratic function, it should be a dense circle. But hold on, just now, right at this 0, we have that empty circle, which comes from the linear function. And then exactly at that 0 as well, we have that dense circle, which comes from this quadratic function. So what happens to the dot right at 0? Should it be a dense circle or an empty circle? Well, when we have a dense circle on top of an empty circle, then the dense circle wins. Okay, so the circle that we should draw here on our graph is that dense circle. So when will it be an empty circle? It's if, let's say, the quadratic graph also has the domain x less than 0 without the equal sign. So that means that both of the dots exactly at 0 will be empty. So only then it will be empty circle right exactly at 0. But if one of the dots exactly at 0 is a dense circle, then the dense circle wins, and we should draw that on our graph. So we are done answering our question B. Now, to answer the next question C, which is the range, you have to remember that the range means that we are looking at the possible values as the y-axis. Okay, all possible values for this function at the y-axis. Okay, now an easy way to remember this is try to imagine that you are standing on that y-axis. Okay, for example, on the right side of y-axis, and then you are the Superman, where you have rays from your eyes. So, for example, that you're Superman right in the middle. So when you look on top, you see that your ray will hit this graph on the right side and also on the left side. And same thing here. And until where does your ray hit? Well, it will hit until infinity. Here as well. But what about below this x-axis? Will your Superman ray hit any function or any graph? Well, no. So that's why we have to stop until here. And what is the smallest value of y there? Well, the value of y there is 0. And is it included 0 or not? Well, look at the circle or the dot there. It's a dense dot or a black dot. So that means the value 0 is included. So it starts from 0 until infinity. And that's our range for the function f(x). Thank you for watching.